Okay, everyone. We are now calling to order the Orange Parish School Board Legal and Legislative Committee for August 19th, 2025. The time is now 5:01. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Zervigon?
Here.
Mr. Parker?
Present.
Ms. Spiro? Present. Ms. Griffin?
Here.
Mr. Marshall? Ms. Eames? Ms. Bodwin?
Present.
Also present, Fatima Fulmer, Superintendent, Ashley Halpern, Board Counsel. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And I will now send it to Board Counsel to facilitate public comment.
Anyone wishing to speak with regard to items on the agenda should fill out a public comment card and submit it to the board secretary. Cards will be received up to 1/2 hour after the meeting begins. Each person shall be permitted to speak up to 2 minutes as established by the chair. I will recognize the speaker and give the speaker permission to proceed. The speaker shall state their name and address for the board records. Those who have a group concern are encouraged to select a spokesperson from the group to address the concern. Speakers are expected to be as concise as possible and to present their questions and comments in an objective manner in accordance with good taste and decorum and without reference to or insinuations against the board, its members, or school system employees. Disruptions or disorderly conduct at the committee meeting will constitute grounds for the presiding officer to ask security personnel to remove the offender.
Thank you. Do we have any additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay, then, with none, then may I have a motion to adopt the agenda as provided?
So moved.
I believe okay, what did I hear? I heard President Bodwin motion, and was it Ms. Griffin who seconded? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is adopted. Right now, I'd like to recognize Ms. Juliana Lund for the legislative update for this month. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members, Superintendent Dr. Fulmore. I'm going to be doing a presentation today, an overview of the 2025 regular legislative session. It adjourned over the summer, so think back to June when we were talking legislative affairs constantly, and we're going to do a little bit of an overview from that session. The 2025 regular legislative session included 944 bills, 24 constitutional amendments, and 751 resolutions and study requests filed. In his opening day address, Governor Jeff Landry emphasized economic growth, education, healthcare transparency, and reducing insurance costs. Throughout the session, the governor remained active in the legislature, attending committee meetings, caucus meetings, while rotating through the chambers during different debates and votes on priority bills. Today's presentation is just a highlight of select key items. With the number of bills, this is just the ones that we really spoke a lot about during this session. Here's a reminder of our legislative priorities from this past year. Some key points on House Bill 1, which is the state budget, includes $43.5 million allocated for Louisiana Gator, $30 million for high-dosage tutoring, allocated $20 million to cover the University of New Orleans debt as part of the transition into the LSU system, added $5 million into operational support for DCFS, and maintained the teacher stipends for the upcoming this school year at $2,000 per teacher and $1,000 per support staff. In House Bill 51, this legislation clarifies that if an existing charter school transfers from the authority of a local school board to Bessie, the assets transfer along with it. Additionally, that if a charter agreement is revoked or the school ceases to operate, any property owned by the school board that was being used by the charter school would return to the local school board and remain property of the local school board. House Resolution 180 creates a study group of 16 appointed members to study truancy, including potentially adjusting the student count methodology used in the MFP in an effort to address truancy, and requires a submission of a written report to the House Committee on Education and Bessie by February 1, 2026. For House Bill 391, under previous law, if a student had 10 or more unexcused absences in any school semester, their test scores and data could not be used and measure student growth for the year. However, House Bill 391 additionally prohibits the inclusion of test scores and data for students who are absent for those 10 days, whether the absences are excused, consecutive, or non-consecutive within a semester of a school year. House Bill 486 deals with mental health assessments. This requires public schools, with the consent of a parent or legal guardian, to make available to each 3rd through 12th grade student the opportunity to undergo a mental health assessment by a licensed behavior health provider within a year, and if feasible, during the first semester of school. Last on this slide, Senate Bill 4. Existing law prohibits the display and posting of political campaign signs on any publicly owned property or right-of-way, or to any public utility pole. Senate Bill 4 makes an exception, subject to school board policy, that political campaign signs may be displayed on the premise of any public school athletic field or a public school gymnasium if paid for by the political candidate or campaign. Senate Bill 81 by Senator Edmonds for Governor Landry. This bill was an effort to have more info in the hands of parents and emphasizes parent connection and access to academic content. This requires the local school board to adopt rules to specify reasonable hours for in-person review of instructional materials and to provide that in-person review is free of charge unless the parent is requesting paper copies. Assessments of academic knowledge, skills, abilities, including non-secure tests and assessment answer keys, may be shown to the parents at the discretion of the local school board and may include only in-person viewing at the school. Senate Bill 99 limits the use of automated speed enforcement devices and mobile cameras to lawfully posted school zones. Local municipalities must post signs and paint school zone stripes when approaching and entering a school zone. And lastly, a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city and governing authority of schools within its boundaries must be executed prior to implementing automated speed enforcement devices or mobile speed cameras. We have another mental health bill, Senate Bill 121. This bill authorizes public school boards to offer mental health screenings for all students in grades K through 12 during the first semester of the school year. It also requires LDH to select these mental health screening tools and to provide them at no cost to a school board, and requires schools to identify the screening tools being used and to include that information on the parental consent form with information on how to access the tool on the school or district's website. Senate Bill 207 by Senator Carter requires public high schools to provide students with the opportunity to enroll in available vocational and technical education courses. If a high school does not offer vocational or technical education courses, the governing authority of the school may enter into an agreement to partner with other public schools, two-year public post-secondary education institutes, schools approved by BESI, or course choice providers to provide available vocational and tech ed courses for students. Senate Bill 246 sets some limits for standards-based assessments. It requires that no later than the 27-28 school year, the Department of Education is to test in English language arts in grades 3 through 8 consecutively, and at least once in grades 9 through 11. The mathematics test is to be administered in grades 3 through 8 consecutively, and at least once in grades 9 through 11. And science and social studies tests are to be administered in not more than 4 grade levels each, and the science test is not to be given in the same grades as the social studies test. Lastly, to ensure rigorous comparability to other states, Senate Bill 246 requires BESI to investigate if a nationally normed assessment or criterion referenced assessment could be used to satisfy federal requirements for assessments used in the school accountability system. Senate Bill 100 creates the State Services and Benefits Legal Status and Accountability Act. requires certain agencies, including the State Department of Education, to determine the eligibility of individuals receiving state services and benefits from an agency, including determining which individuals attempting to receive state services and benefits are illegal aliens or unaccompanied alien children. Requires each agency to submit an annual report to the governor, the attorney general, and the legislature to include specifics about services provided to these individuals, compliance specifics, and other financial information. Senate Bill 126, known as the Protect Our Children and Response Act, requires Bessie and the Department of Education to coordinate with the Louisiana Center for Safe Schools to provide mapping data of public schools to local law enforcement. And they were also very specific to make sure that this explicitly stated applicable to charter schools. Senate Bill 160 authorizes a city, parish, or other local public school board to contract with a transportation network company to transport riders under the age of 18 to or from school, a related or sanctioned school activity. House Bill 321, known as the Louisiana Numeracy and Excellence Act, the LANE Act, mocks the previous literacy forms that we've seen in the state from the past few years. As literacy scores have gone up, the state now shifts its focus towards numeracy. Effective beginning September 1, 2028, teacher applicants will be required to complete additional measures of numeracy training to meet certification requirements. Lastly, it also extends the additional math professional development requirements that were in place for 4th through 8th teachers down through K now, effective in the 27 school year. House Bill 384 reduces the minimum number of semesters reduces the minimum number of semesters for when a student is required to be expelled from 4 to 2 semesters when a student in grades 6 through 12 is found in possession of a firearm, a knife with a blade 2.5 inches or more, any illegal narcotic, drug, or other controlled substance on any school property. Additionally, previous law stated that students in grades 6 through 12 found guilty of being in possession of tobacco, alcohol, or vaping products on school property, on a school bus, or at a school-sponsored event may be recommended for expulsion. House Bill 384 adds students found guilty on the first occurrence of being in possession of marijuana or THC that they also may be recommended for expulsion. Essentially, this bill is allowing a bit more discretion for principals in these instances. Instead of requiring expulsion, it may be expelled, keeping students in school. And lastly, this bill requires local public school boards to gather and report this data to the Department of Ed. House Bill 684, we did discuss this a lot during the mid-session update, but I just wanted to highlight a few key areas since it really is a large, profound bill. House Bill 684 puts several safeguards in place, including requires school employees to file detailed incident reports after a student is restrained, eliminates the use of mechanical restraints such as straps or handcuffs, mandates that all special ed classrooms install video cameras, requires review of footage to ensure proper restraining methods were used, and also requires the state education department to develop training for people who work with students with disabilities. House Bill 52 by Representative Willard requires financial aid for post-secondary education as a component of the required financial literacy course that's required to graduate. The topics covered by this course shall include, but not limited to, scholarships, grants, and other financial opportunities to pay for post-secondary education. House Bill 344 broadens the transfer requirement for when a student's full school disciplinary record, including but not limited to the dates of any suspension or expulsions and the reason why the student was suspended or expelled. SCR 40 creates the K-12 School and Safety Task Force, which will be composed of 18 members and will study ways to improve security measures in public schools and propose recommendations for legislation. Moving into a nutrition-focused bill now. Overall, Senate Bill 14 reshapes how schools, food manufacturers, and restaurants address nutrition and ingredient transparency and requires doctors to stay up to date on additional nutrition education. Senate Bill 14 prohibits public schools and non-public schools that receive state funds from serving foods that contain specific ingredients. This does apply to breakfast and lunch that is served to students on school campus during regular school hours, and any food and beverages served by a school to a student during aftercare. However, concessions and vending machines are exempt from this. Additionally, this requires public and non-public schools that receive state funds to purchase food produced in Louisiana to the extent practical. And the prohibited ingredients include specific food dyes, sucralose, aspartame, potassium bromate, and more. And this is effective beginning in the 28-29 school year. Senate Bill 101 lifts the school exemption, which banned firearms within 1,000 feet of a school. School campuses will still remain firearm-free zones. Okay, teacher pay. House Bill 466 requires each public school system to provide a salary increase of at least $2,250 for certified personnel and at least $1,125 for non-certified personnel. Requires each school system to fund the increase in related benefits using the net savings attributable by the system from the reduction in its employer contribution rate connected to the state's payment of certain unfunded accrued liability of the TRSL system. If the amount of net savings realized by a school system is in excess of the amount needed to fully fund the salary increases, the school system may use the excess funds to employ personnel in certain critical shortages, employ personnel for summer enrichment programs, childhood education programs, school security, technology, and additional salary increases. House Bill 473 is the constitutional amendment component of 466. So it's the exact same verbiage that I just read. That's going to be the constitutional amendment that everyone will vote on April 18th, 2026. Additionally, House Bill 473 states that it requires the MFP formula for the 26-27 school year to include the following: a permanent salary increase for public school system personnel whose employers do not participate in TRSL, and a calculation of the total amount necessary to complete funding of the permanent salary increase to personnel whose employers do participate in TRSL and didn't realize enough net savings. So essentially that shortfall funding that we've talked about a few times, that will be covered. Okay. Those two bills, they did pass, and it will go to the election in April.
Just reads on the slide that it's a failed amendment.
Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. So failed constitutional amendment. This was the previous attempt. That refers the previous attempt when the constitutional amendment did fail. They were commonly referred to this past session as the failed constitutional amendments that they were kind of revamping and trying to get back. So that's why they were there. I see, that's confusing. I apologize for that.
It did pass.
It did pass this session, and everyone will vote on that on April 18th, 2026.
So just to
Parker,
clarify.
yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just to clarify, it was put before the voters, it failed.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was House Bill 466, House Bill 473 to put it back on the ballot,
Mm-hmm.
and that passed, and we'll vote on it in April.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Helpful.
I apologize for that. These are now failed items of legislation from this session. House Bill 201 would have expanded student eligibility for the READ program to include those attending a D or F school, and would have required the State Department of Education to deliver books to these schools and distribute them to students. House Bill 225 would have authorized public school personnel to conduct weapon screenings of students upon entry onto a school campus. House Bill 243 would have required examinations that are relevant to the school and district accountability system at the prescribed grade levels for students in schools participating in the Legator program. House Bill 271 would have been an optional increase by parish to the homestead exemption up to an additional $5,000 of the assessed value of the property. That would have drastically impacted revenue here in NOLA PS. continuing on failed items, House Bill 478 would have required certain information about pregnancy, adoption, and neonatal care to be posted and distributed at school health care centers and public high schools and student health centers on public post-secondary education institution campuses. Senate Resolution 92 by Senator Bowie would have directed the State Department of Education to provide specific information in a report to the Senate Committee on Finance and Education relative to the original charter school demonstration programs law. House Bill 685 would have prohibited state agencies from maintaining or initiating DEI programs, employing people to perform functions related to DEI, or requiring any applicants or employees to provide a statement regarding DEI. House Bill 614 would have required students to attain a minimum ACT score set by the State Board of Education as a prerequisite to high school graduation and prohibit state-administered end-of-course assessments for high school students. Senate Bill 117 by Senator Miguez was an additional school nutrition bill that we talked about during the mid-session update. Earlier I mentioned Senate Bill 14. That's a different nutrition bill that goes much further than just schools. Senate Bill 117 was only focused on schools and was vetoed by the governor, as there was potential with two nutrition bills having confusion amongst having the same subject matter. And overall, Senate Bill 14 takes on a lot of the health initiatives that are more in line with the broader scope where the state is going. And House Bill 185 would have required Bessie to develop and implement a methodology that uses average daily attendance for the purpose of establishing the base student count for state funding in the MFP formula. And lastly, just a little look of what's ahead. I wanted to provide some information about the 2026 legislative session. It does start a little bit earlier next year as it did this past year. We're already working internally on collecting feedback and ideas for the 26 legislative agenda, and we look forward to collaborating with executive leadership, school leaders, all of our NOLA PS departments, and of course, school board. And that is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Marshall?
Go ahead. Oh, okay. I don't have a question. I have a request. I think you've given us a lot of information, and I mean it's very helpful to see not just a line item and get some background of what it's about. I would request that those comments you make put in the actual presentation so that our audience, the people that actually look at our agenda and go through our agenda, can actually see those comments that you made. Because if they just listen to it on television, they're going to not be able to take the notes and things. But if you do that, I don't imagine it costs anymore. So if you include that for our constituents. Thank you.
Yeah, Superintendent, do you have a comment?
I was going to say, with consideration to the presentation, we try to avoid having 50, 60 slides that could amount to that. If we were to put all of her talking points in there, we can find a way to share more in the line item description, but these are her talking points, and it could lead, it's a lot of content that she's speaking from that could result into a lot of content to go through on the slides, but these are her talking points around those items that we provided updates on.
All right, Board Member Biro?
I have questions about the implementation of Senate Bill 100. I have, people in my life who are in mixed status families, and I've heard some questions about how what they could expect from the school district if they have a mixed status family with getting benefits for their children.
That's a great question. To our understanding of the bill, it really requires the State Board of Education to report the information back. So we can look into that and get some more information to you specifically on your question.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that.
Of course. I just don't want to speak out of term, so we can look into it, and I'll make sure we get you information.
Yeah, no, and that's a very important one for all of us to pay attention to. As a former teacher of 20th century history. This all points in a pretty clear direction in terms of what the state might do with this kind of data. So we certainly all need to be up on our toes as to what the drift is and where it's headed, to just be aware and be prepared. It's frankly unnerving what I think what we see going on, but thank you for keeping on that. And I would also look forward to us understanding it better as we have the opportunity to do so. Yeah. Board Member Parker.
Thank you so much. Thank you for raising that question, Board Member Bureau. I'd look forward to your response. One sort of silly but also serious question. I think it was Senate Bill 14, the nutrition bill. Can our schools still serve king cake? Is that allowed?
And I remember, yes, and I know we talked about this. So as best as we understand that bill specifically references food that is purchased and served by the school.
Okay, so if I'm a teacher, can I buy a king cake for my class? Or is that, I'm a little bit facetious, but also it just seems like, yet again, we have legislators making decisions for schools when they are not actually quite familiar with how schools operate. I think the more serious question I have is, this was a lot of bills related to education. I didn't see any about increasing level 1 MFP. Were there any from the previous legislative session? Do we expect any moving forward?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
More board comments? Thank you, Ms. Lund. All right, so now we need to move into executive session. This next on the agenda. So the time is now 5:27. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, clarify. Who made the motion? Who seconded? Okay, Bureau, a motion by Member Bureau, seconded by Member Parker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are now moving into executive session. Thank you.
Just pass the gavel.
All right. Calling back to order the August 19th, 2025 Orange Parish School Board Legal Legislative Committee. The time is now 5:49. Ms. Brown, may we have a roll call?
Mr. Zervigon?
Here.
Mr. Parker?
Present.
Ms. Bureau?
Present.
Ms. Griffin? Mr. Marshall? Ms. Eames? Ms. Boatwin? Also present, Dr. Fatima, former Superintendent Ashley Halpern, Board Counsel. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Board Counsel, can you bring us through 3.1?
Yes, during executive session, the board held a discussion of an attorney-client privilege matter pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 42:17A10 and Louisiana Code of Evidence Article 506. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There are no further items on the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All right, so motion by Board Member Parker, seconded by Board Member Bureau. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.